Hello, yes, I am still in Tooting Market, where we're all slightly distracted because a large box of kittens has just turned up. So that's pretty exciting. But before that, we were watching your interviews with a hawk eye. And I'm going to start with Kirsten over here. Now, Kirsten, you were talking earlier about mismanagement at the top of the prison sector, i.e., quite a lot of changes within the government. Do you think Alex Chalk addressed that point in his interview with Camilla?
My takeaway from that interview is that one of the core issues within the ministry, which is to deliver justice to people in the UK, has just not been resolved. The number of court cases pending trial has still remained the same. And so for me, there's an issue around, the fact that he's had 5 jobs in the last 3 years, and I don't know how many justice secretaries we've had in such a short period of time, and there just has to be accountability at the top when they're not delivering for the British people. So I think that's the greatest disappointment, and let's hope there are less reshuffles in the future and actually ministers are able to stay in role long enough to actually carry through their policies. So it's great to hear from the minister and to hear everything that he's putting in place, but I'd like to see him to see it through actually for longer than 12 months, hopefully. But there's a general election coming up, so maybe not, who knows.
I think that's a really, really interesting point, Kirsten. I just did a little tot up now, had a quick look, and there have been 8 changes of Justice Secretary in the last 8 years, which, as you say, must make things pretty difficult for the civil servants trying to enact government policy and make prison reform very difficult indeed. Now, Ollie, what about you? When we talked last, you were pretty sympathetic to the government. You pointed out that this is just one prison escape. There have only been 4 in recent years. Alex Chalk listed there quite a lot of changes that he's going to make to Wandsworth Prison. Already 40 inmates have been moved out. Do you think still that the government is doing enough to address problems like this and more generally problems in the prison sector?
I think you've just sort of said what I was going to say. He is actioning things. He is putting things in place. He's doing internal reviews. He's asking questions. He's making sure that people are answering to what they've done and what has gone wrong, and moving prisoners that probably need to be moved. He is actually doing a good job, I believe. And I think necessarily, yes, I take the continuity point in terms of if you're there longer, you learn the brief more, etc., etc. However, if you have a good person in the job, which I believe Alex Chalk is, I think you can actually get on with things. I think the thing for me would be, when it comes to terrorism and other really big crimes like that, what can we do to speed up the sentencing, putting them through the courts, bringing them to justice? I think his case was set for November. Let's do more to bring them before the judge and get them into prison, into a more secure prison faster.
Thank you very much. I think that is a very big problem, the long waiting list for trials to actually reach the courts. Now, Tony, I wanted to ask you about that interview with Lord Agnew, who resigned from his position as a government minister because he was so concerned about COVID fraud. What did you make of that?
I think that is a very serious issue sitting in the country. We've clearly seen some clear issues with regard to procurement, nepotism, cronyism, and I think if the government is serious about running a nation and moving a nation forward in the 21st century, one of the things it needs to do is not just to be concentrating on the big scale projects which catch media attention. There's the small and medium-sized business sector which has suffered greatly, and if money is being lost to fraud, it means then effectively money cannot be employed effectively in the country to make things better. And I think that might be one of the overriding factors with regard to the issues surrounding what has happened at Wandsworth and across prisons in general.
That's really, really interesting. Yeah, big problems in the procurement sector. And as you say, I mean, fraud, a deep issue, which doesn't seem to be being systematically addressed. That is it from our brilliant People's Panel in Tooting this morning. So thank you all. Really, really great to have you on. I'm sure I'll see you next week, Camilla. But for now, back to you in the studio.